What if I told you that what you do every day to control your diabetes, that same routine you follow with discipline, with effort, with the conviction that you are taking care of yourself, is actually accelerating the damage to your kidneys, destroying your nervous system, and stealing your energy year after year? I know that sounds strong. I know it may sound unfair, but I ask you to listen to me until the end, because what I am going to share with you today is not opinion. It is science. It is information published in the most important medical journals in the world, information that has existed for years, and for some reason no one explains to you when they hand you that prescription in the consultation. Today we are going to talk about the 5 most dangerous mistakes that diabetics make. Not careless people, not people who ignore their health. We are talking about responsible people like you, who take their medication on time, who go to the doctor, who try to eat better, people who do everything they were told to do, and who still are making mistakes that over time can cost them their health and in some cases their life. Now, I need to be very clear from the beginning because I want you to trust what you are going to hear today. I am not here to tell you to throw your medications in the trash. I am not one of those who offer you a magical solution that replaces everything your doctor indicated. My position is much more honest than that. I am pro-information, and the information you are missing today is precisely the one that can make the difference between living with diabetes or living well despite diabetes. There is a medication that appears in almost all the stories people tell me, a medication that is prescribed all over the world, that is the most used for type 2 diabetes, that according to many studies has real and proven benefits. That medication is called metformin, and the most likely thing is that you are taking it right now, or that someone close to you is taking it. Metformin is not the enemy. Let me repeat it because it is important that it is clear. Metformin is not the enemy, but there is a reality that patients almost never know, and it is that this medication, like every powerful tool, has specific conditions of use, has interactions, has side effects that accumulate over time, and when it is used without that complete information, when it is used incorrectly, even with the best intention, it can become what I call a silent poison. Silent because it does not hurt immediately. Silent because the damage it generates is easily confused with normal aging. Silent because when the symptoms finally become evident, they have already been installed in the body for years. Let me tell you something that happens very frequently. A person in their 60s arrives, has been taking metformin for more than a decade without interruptions. Their doctor tells them that their glucose levels are well controlled, and however, that person feels their legs numb at night, forgets things with a frequency that worries them, gets tired with an ease they did not have before, sleeps 8 hours, and wakes up exhausted. And when they ask their doctor why they feel this way, the answer is always the same. It is age. But it is not always age. Sometimes it is metformin interacting with a body to which no one is giving what it needs to compensate for what that medication is taking away. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you exactly what it is taking away, why it happens, and what you can do about it. Now, before entering into the 5 mistakes, I want you to understand something about how diabetes works in the body. Not with complicated medical terms, but with an image that you're going to remember forever. Imagine that your blood is a highway and glucose, sugar, are the cars circulating on that highway. Under normal conditions, there is a traffic signal called insulin, and that signal tells the cars exactly where to go. It directs them toward the cells that are the energy factories of your body. The cars enter, the factories function, and everything flows. But when there is type 2 diabetes, that traffic signal becomes weak. The cars do not obey it well. They stay circulating on the highway without entering the factories. The highway becomes congested, and that congestion, that excess glucose floating in the blood, is exactly what damages the blood vessels, the nerves, the kidneys, and the eyes over time. What metformin does, in simple terms, is reduce the amount of cars that leave one of the largest factories in the body, the liver. The liver, in people with diabetes, has the tendency to release too much glucose into the blood, especially during the night and the first hours of the morning. Metformin stops that, and in that sense, it is a legitimate tool. The problem is not the tool, the problem is how that tool is used, and the bigger problem is that no one teaches you how to use it correctly. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the 5 most common and most dangerous mistakes that diabetics who take metformin make. Some of these mistakes seem insignificant. One of them, the fourth, is literally the one that can kill. And I say it without exaggeration because there is a real physiological mechanism documented that turns an apparently small mistake into a silent medical emergency. Also, I want you to know that at the end of this video, in the last block, I am going to talk to you not as a doctor who recites protocols, but as someone who understands how difficult it is to live with this condition. I am going to give you a clear, practical path based on the best available evidence so that you can make smarter decisions about your health without abandoning your medical treatment, without falling for miraculous promises, with real information, because you deserve that. You who get up every day and do what you can to take care of yourself deserve to have the complete information, not only the information that fits in a 15-minute consultation, the information you really need to understand what is happening inside your body. So if you are ready, let us begin. The first mistake is one that almost everyone makes, and that has a consequence that very few know and is directly related to the exact moment when you take your pill every day. The first mistake seems so simple that when you hear it, you are going to think it cannot be that important. But the most dangerous mistakes in medicine are almost always the ones that seem insignificant. Error number 1, taking metformin on an empty stomach. Millions of people do this every morning. They wake up, go to the kitchen, take their pill with a glass of water, and continue with their day. They believe they are being disciplined, and in reality, they are causing 2 problems at the same time. The first is immediate. The empty stomach has nothing to cushion the impact of the medication on the gastric mucosa. That is why so many people with diabetes feel nausea, digestive discomfort, and acidity that they attribute to the disease or to age. It is the wrong time to take the pill. The second problem is deeper. A study published in the British Journal of Clinical Pharmacology demonstrated that the bioavailability of metformin, that is the real capacity of the body to absorb it and use it correctly, increases between 25 and 40% when taken with food. That means that the same dose they prescribed you works much better when there is food present. Taking metformin on an empty stomach not only harms your stomach, it also makes the medication work below its potential. The solution is simple. Take your metformin with the first bites of your main meal, not before, not after, with the first bites. That small change can completely transform how your body feels. Now, the second mistake, and this is the one that worries me the most because its consequences are not seen immediately, but they accumulate over years until one day they explode in the form of symptoms that no one knows how to explain. Error number 2, ignoring the silent theft of vitamin B12. Metformin interferes with specific receptors in the small intestine that are in charge of absorbing vitamin B12. This is not an alternative theory. It has been documented for decades. The exact mechanism involves calcium receptors in the terminal ileum, and the result is clear. The longer the use of metformin, the greater the risk of B12 deficiency. An analysis published in the journal Diabetes Care found that up to 30% of patients who have been taking metformin for more than 3 years present low levels of vitamin B12 without knowing it, without having received any warning from their doctor. And what does having low B12 mean? It means numbness and tingling in feet and hands that you may already have and that you attribute to diabetes or to the cold. It means deep fatigue that does not improve even if you sleep well. It means problems with concentration and memory that make you think your mind is aging too fast. It means, in advanced cases, irreversible nerve damage. The most serious thing is that these symptoms are exactly the same as those produced by diabetic neuropathy. So the doctor sees them, says it is the diabetes advancing, and increases the dose of the medication that is causing part of the problem. Ask your doctor for a vitamin B12 test at your next consultation. It is a simple, inexpensive blood test, and it can reveal something that has been affecting your quality of life for years. The third mistake is the most widespread of all because it comes from a logic that seems reasonable but is profoundly wrong. Error number 3, believing that metformin replaces diet. There is a very common mentality among people who have had diabetes for years. I already take my medication, so I have some margin to eat with more freedom. It is understandable to think that way, but it is a mistake that the body pays for dearly. Metformin acts mainly on the liver, reducing internal glucose production, but it has no real power over the sugar spikes that are generated when you eat refined carbohydrates, white bread, rice, sugar, fruit juices. Those spikes occur anyway, and every glucose spike is a direct inflammatory blow on the blood vessels, the kidneys, and the heart. Think of it this way. Metformin is like a firefighter who works inside your liver. He does an important job in there. But if you keep feeding the fire from the outside with every wrong meal, no firefighter can win that battle alone. The medication and the diet are not alternative options. They are two pieces of the same system, and when one is missing, the other cannot compensate for the damage. We have reached the fourth mistake, and I want you to pay all your attention now because this is the one I mentioned at the beginning of the video. This is the mistake of the title, The One That Can Kill. Not as exaggeration to capture your attention, but because there is a real physiological mechanism documented by the FDA, by the European Medicines Agency, and by dozens of clinical studies that turns this mistake into a silent medical emergency. Error number 4, not monitoring kidney function while taking metformin. To understand why this is so serious, you need to know something fundamental about how your body processes this medication. Metformin is not metabolized. It is not transformed in the liver like most drugs. It leaves the body exactly as it entered, and it does so through a single route, the kidneys. That means that if your kidneys are working well, metformin does its job and is eliminated without problem. But if your kidneys are weakened and their filtration capacity is reduced, the medication cannot leave, it stays circulating in the blood, it accumulates. And when metformin levels in the blood rise too high, something that doctors call lactic acidosis occurs. Lactic acidosis is a toxic accumulation of lactic acid in the organism. The initial symptoms seem innocent: intense fatigue, nausea, diffuse abdominal pain, a feeling of general weakness, but if it is not detected in time, it progresses rapidly toward multi-organ failure. The mortality rate of severe lactic acidosis due to metformin exceeds 50% in cases not treated in time. Now, here is the real problem. Chronic kidney disease in its initial stages does not hurt. It has no obvious symptoms. A person can have their kidneys functioning at 60 or 50% of their capacity and feel completely normal. And if that person has been taking metformin for years without any kidney monitoring, they are walking on ground that they do not know if it is firm or if it has deep cracks. There is a test called glomerular filtration rate, and together with a serum creatinine analysis, it allows you to know exactly in what condition your kidneys are at this moment. The FDA clearly establishes that every person who takes metformin must have this control before starting treatment and periodically during it, ideally every 3 to 6 months, depending on their baseline condition. Ask your doctor at your next consultation, when was the last time they measured your glomerular filtration rate? If the answer is more than a year ago, or if they simply do not remember, that is an urgent step you must take this week. I am not asking you to distrust your doctor. I am asking you to be an active patient, to ask the right questions, to understand that your health needs your participation, not just your obedience. Now we enter the 5th mistake. This one is less known than the previous ones, but its effects are felt in daily life in a way that many people will immediately recognize when I explain it. Error number 5, neglecting magnesium and zinc while taking metformin. Type 2 diabetes by itself already generates an accelerated depletion of essential minerals. The kidneys of a diabetic person excrete magnesium and zinc in greater quantities than normal, especially when blood glucose levels are elevated. But when metformin is added to that equation, the depletion deepens even more. Magnesium is one of the most important minerals in the human body. It participates in more than 300 enzymatic reactions, regulates blood pressure, protects the heart, and what is most relevant for someone with diabetes, magnesium is fundamental for insulin to work correctly. A study published in the Journal of Diabetes and Metabolic Disorders demonstrated a direct relationship between low magnesium levels and greater insulin resistance. If you lack magnesium, Your body responds worse to insulin, and the control of your glucose becomes more difficult, even if you are taking your medication. How do you know if you lack magnesium? Think about the nocturnal cramps that wake you up in the early morning. Think about the constant muscle tension, about the insomnia that has no clear explanation, about the blood pressure that does not stabilize despite treatment. Those are messages that your body has been sending for a long time. Zinc, for its part, has a direct role in the production and storage of insulin inside the pancreas. The beta cells of the pancreas, which are the ones that produce insulin, depend on zinc to function efficiently. When zinc is scarce, insulin production becomes erratic. And in addition, the immune system, which already works under stress in a diabetic person, loses one of its most important pillars. The good news is that both magnesium and zinc can be replenished through diet. Pumpkin seeds are an extraordinary source of both minerals. Spinach, dark chocolate with more than 85% cocoa, almonds, and seafood are natural allies that you can incorporate without major changes in your routine. But there is something more important than the source of these minerals, and it is the awareness that your body needs them, that diabetes and metformin are actively consuming them, and that no one is going to tell you that in a standard 15-minute consultation. You have just heard 5 mistakes that millions of people make every day believing they are taking care of themselves, and now that you know them, you no longer have to make them. Today you have more information than before, and that information is power, not to panic, but to make smarter decisions from this moment on. Now I want to talk to you about the correct path, not about a miraculous cure, not about a supplement that solves everything. I am going to talk to you about 3 concrete pillars backed by scientific evidence that, when applied together, create the conditions for your body to function better, for your medication to work better, and for you to feel better in your daily life. The first pillar is anti-inflammatory diet. Type 2 diabetes is not only a problem of blood sugar. At its deepest root, it is a chronic inflammatory condition, and inflammation is fed or extinguished largely by what you eat every day. Reducing refined carbohydrates, white bread, white rice, processed juices, ultra-processed foods is not a punishment. It is the most powerful decision you can make to reduce the work that your pancreas and your liver have to do every day. Instead, incorporate foods that work in favor of your body. Dark green leafy vegetables that give you magnesium and antioxidants. Clean proteins such as eggs, fish, and legumes that stabilize glucose without violent spikes. Healthy fats such as olive oil and avocado that reduce systemic inflammation. You do not have to transform your diet overnight. Start with one small change this week and build from there. The second pillar is targeted supplementation. With everything you learned today about the theft of B12, the depletion of magnesium, and the loss of zinc, it is clear that a diabetic person who takes metformin has specific nutritional needs that diet alone sometimes cannot fully cover. Talking to your doctor about your current levels of vitamin B12 and magnesium is the starting point. Do not assume they are fine. Verify it. A blood test will give you a real picture of what your body needs, and from there, you will be able to make informed decisions together with your doctor or with a specialized nutritionist. The third pillar is active monitoring and participation in your own treatment. This is the pillar that most transforms the experience of living with diabetes. There is a huge difference between being a passive patient who receives instructions and follows them without asking, and being an active patient who understands their condition, asks the right questions, requests the necessary tests, and makes decisions with real information. Ask for your glomerular filtration rate test, ask for your vitamin B12 test, ask at what time of day you should take your metformin and with what type of food. Those 3 questions in your next consultation can change the trajectory of your health in a way that no medication alone can achieve. Diabetes is not a sentence. I know this because I have seen with my own eyes how people who arrive feeling defeated by this condition, exhausted, confused with the feeling that their body was abandoning them, managed to recover energy, stabilize their levels, reduce symptoms they thought were permanent, simply by having access to the correct information and applying it with consistency. I do not promise you that it will be easy. I promise you that it is worth it. I promise you that your body has a capacity for response that you have probably underestimated. And I promise you that every small step in the right direction counts. It accumulates and over time produces changes that you yourself are going to notice. You made it here because you care about your health, because you do not give up, because you look for answers when something is not right. That already says a lot about who you are. So I ask you to do one concrete thing today, just one. Write down on a piece of paper the 3 tests you should ask for at your next consultation: the glomerular filtration rate, the vitamin B12 level, and the serum magnesium level. Take that paper to your doctor. Be the patient who asks questions, because your health cannot depend solely on what someone else remembers to tell you in 15 minutes. If this video gave you something valuable today, if you felt that someone was finally explaining to you what you needed to hear, I ask you to share it with someone who also needs it, with that family member who has had diabetes for years and who may be making these same mistakes without knowing it. Sharing this information is a real act of care. And if you want to continue learning, in the next video, we are going to talk about something that very few doctors mention: the foods that seem healthy for a diabetic, but that in reality trigger inflammation in a silent and constant way. It is information that is going to surprise you. Until next time, take good care of yourself.